She's got a sneaky fan under the table.
It's because it's the temperature of the fucking sun in this house.
Look,
Where I'm sitting is boiling.
this is the price you have to pay for doing a podcast in the summer. I mean, suck it up, guys. Okay, welcome, folks. I can't believe another month has gone by for Flickering Dreams, where we look at the films of the month, and in this case, it is July 2026. We've had quite a lot of interesting films this month, I have to say, and I think there is going to be some lively debate tonight between the Flickering Dreams gang. We have joining us on Flickering Dreams this month, we've got Dan Cook from Dan Cook's Movie Reviews on Facebook. We've got the Reverend Andy Godfrey from Pure 247 Radio, also author of the best-selling book Confessions of a Christian Film Critic. Faith on Film, that's what it's called. Look it up on Amazon. And Emma Sewell from Emma at TheMovies. And I'm Bob Mann from onemansmovies.com. And we will also be getting some video input from Scott Forbes of the Forbes Film and TV Review on Facebook, who's away for a very good reason, which we'll come to later. As I think we talked about previously, we each get to nominate our favourite film of the month in originally alphabetical order. But last month, that meant it was Andy's first choice, which means this month, with a B for Bob, it is my first choice. First of all, though, I'm going to mention an honourable mention for a film which none of us have selected as our film of the month. And it's been a very good month for film, clearly, if The Invite, Olivia Cook's bitingly sharp cringe comedy of social manners, didn't make any of our lists. So I thought that was worth an honourable mention. In any other month, that would have probably been my film of the month, as I gave it a solid 9 out of 10 for that one. But a film I've actually picked as my film of the month is one I suspect not many of you will have seen. It's a film called The Last Viking. And there's a lot to like in this Scandi film from Anders Thomas Jensen, not least of which is an almost unrecognisable Mads Mikkelsen playing a mentally disturbed man. The plot here sees a guy called Anker, played by Nicolas Licaz, arrested for a bank robbery, but not before he lets his mentally challenged brother Manfred, played by Mads Mikkelsen, as I said, know where he stashed the loot. And he instructs him to go and retrieve it from the locker at the station and bury it in the woods near their old family home. Now, we skip forward 15 years later, and Anker is released from prison, only to find that Manfred now thinks he's John Lennon and insists on being called John. I'm going to play you a clip here. This clip is entirely in Danish, so for audio listeners, you'll just have to kind of imagine what happens for 30 seconds. But in brief summary, in this clip, we see Anker setting Manfred the task of burying the money, and then we cut to his return from prison, where Manfred is now John Lennon, and he gets so upset when his brother calls him Manfred that he throws himself out of the moving car. Here's a clip.
Jeg blev nødt til at tage væk et stykke tid. Og så den her nøgle. Den skulle du spise. Nogle gange så skulle man skal færdig først. Inden på banegården, der er der en taske. Den taske, den henter du og graver ned i skoven op ved mors hus. Jeg er godt begravet et andet sted.
Jeg er ikke glemt, han hedder John nu.
Hvorfor fanden vil du ikke have Manfred mere?
Altså, du kan jo ikke bare komme hjem, når du har været væk så længe, og så tror du, at alt er det samme.
Ja, John. Så er den dobbelt ved Lennon. Du ligner ham jo ikke engang. Du har ikke engang til at rette briller på. Det er vi ved at spare op til. Stop det nu. Manfred, nu fortæller om, hvor den...
So the comedy here is just wonderfully black, and the concept involved in this film where a psychiatrist goes around Scandinavia gathering together psych patients who think they're Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr in order to put the band back together again is so absurd and pure genius that for me this was just a delight. It absolutely smashed the 6 laugh test for me. But it's not an easy watch either. There's extreme violence in the form of a character called Fleming, played by Nicholas Brough, who is one of Anker's previous heist buddies, who wants to get his hands on the cash and will stop at nothing to do that. He basically whacks old women. He smashes faces with heavy objects. It really is in the Evil Dead Burns level of gruesome at occasional moments. There's also an underlying story in here of child abuse and cruelty, and this film does have a similarity with the Odyssey from this month in earning a highlighted entry in doesthedogdie.com, because I know that sort of action does upset a lot of viewers, and this is one such film which has quite an upsetting scene, I have to say. All of this actually would have made the film far too icky for the illustrious Mrs. Movie Man, so she did not go to see this film, which is a shame because otherwise the musical interludes are really solid and fabulous. The film is hilarious, as I say, and extremely engaging. And again, it earns a solid 9 out of 10 for me. Now, Andy, I know you've seen this film as well, haven't you? In fact, I think you recommended it to me. I went out of my way to see it. Have you anything
I'm
to
glad
add
I
to my
did, Bob,
review?
and I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did, because when I saw it on my laptop. I was sent a screener, and I was just enraptured from beginning to end. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I thought the performances were terrific. As you say, the humour is very, very black. There are moments when it's quite an uncomfortable watch, but the concept of these guys thinking they are the Beatles is really hilarious. I just thought that the whole thing was beautifully put together. It's a real mix of, as you say, sometimes a bit gruesomeness combined with humour. But Mads Mikkelsen, he's always worth watching, and I just thought it was a terrific film. Really, really loved it. Yeah, I gave it a 9 as well, Bob.
Yeah. Dan, Emma, I take it you didn't see this one?
No, didn't spot that one.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
but it will definitely be on my radar because I love Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's one of the best actors working today.
Literally, when that scene with the key started, which is right at the start of the film, I didn't recognise him. It's such a departure from the normal Mads Mikkelsen film that, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant in it. I have to say. So that's my choice, which is The Last Viking. It's definitely left cinemas now. It only got a very limited release, but I dare say it will be streaming soon. So watch out for that one. We're now going to turn to Dan, who's chosen a very different film. Dan, can you introduce us to your favourite film of the month?
Well, I'm not so sure, but it's my favourite, but it's definitely the one I wanted to talk about the most. It's, the Deadites are back for the 6th entry of the Evil Dead franchise with Evil Dead Burn. Certainly the bloodiest film in the series so far.
We have a clip here. Again, apologies to our audio listeners. This is a very visual clip from the trailer, so just wallow in the audio mayhem for 30 seconds.
The whole family can be reunited.
Did you follow that in audio? I bet you didn't.
Squishy.
Squishy.
So yes, for those not familiar with the Evil Dead series, this is a horror franchise that's been going since 1981. Started with Sam Raimi with Evil Dead, which got caught up in the Video Nasties Act. If this film had come out back then, this definitely would have ended up on the Video Nasties list, because this is easily the most gruesome film in the series so far, for good and for bad. So the story is here. We have a young French woman who reunites with her in-laws after her abusive husband is killed, and she goes back to the family home where things are very awkward with them because they blame her for the accident and thought their son was far too good for her, even though he was an abusive monster. And then the Deadites arrive, and things get a lot worse very, very quickly. So I don't have a problem with on-screen gore, and this film certainly delivers the gory goods. The director is a guy called Sebastian Vanacek, who in 2024 directed one of my favorite films of that year, which is called Infested, which is a very arachnophobic horror film about a French apartment block that becomes overrun with venomous spiders. If you don't like spiders, do not watch Infested because it is incredibly creepy. But it's definitely good proving ground for this film, and there's even a scene in the film which is a very brief shot of a spider before it gets squished. So he's clearly calling back to his spidery past. And in fact, there's quite a few callbacks to previous Evil Dead films, as is tradition with these films now. There's a shot of a chainsaw, and there's even a very brief photo cameo from original star Bruce Campbell, who was Ash in the original trilogy and in the TV show Ash vs. Evil Dead. The thing that distinguished Evil Dead from all the other films, in a lot of the films in the Video Nasties list of 72 films which are impounded, was that it was gory and it was chaotic and it was mental, but it was also very funny. And that humour is something that carried through the original trilogy of Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, which is easily my favourite in the series, and Army of Darkness. Evil Dead 2013, which was directed by who was it directed by? Fede Alvarez, ditched the comedy for a lot more in-your-face gore, but it didn't have much of a sense of humour, so I found that film pretty unpleasant. Evil Dead Rise, which came out a few years ago, brought it back, and I thought Evil Dead Rise a proper return to form. And unfortunately, Evil Dead Burn has gone even further back from bringing us the humour that Evil Dead is so, really trademarked in the horror sphere. There are some very imaginative and very, very nasty kills in this, but that's really all there is. With Evil Dead, when Sam Raimi came up with the concept of Evil Dead, and I know that Mark Kermode has talked about this, he talked about it as a Three Stooges film with blood and guts replacing custard pies. And that sense of that anarchic kind of knock-around fun that makes Evil Dead films so enjoyable is absolutely not present in Evil Dead Burn. And although I love gore, and I think the practical effects in this are pretty damn fantastic during this time of a lot of CGI and a lot of, CGI blood and things like that, the use of practical effects in this is great. It wasn't fun to watch. And I don't think I've said that in an Evil Dead film before, because even Fede Alvarez's film, which I don't like that much, still has a kind of black sense of humor. The only humor that comes from this film are punchlines which are delivered by a character who is an elderly woman who is clearly suffering from Alzheimer's, which I think is pretty cheap when it comes to getting laughs from an audience. And they didn't work on the audience which I saw the film with. I think they were pretty unimpressed by it too. There's lots of squishiness. There's lots of, covering your hands. There's lots of, cringing at the cinema screen, but that's really all there is. And we're living through an absolute golden age of horror at the moment. And if The Evil Dead is going to survive during this golden era, it has to remember that it's not only about making people terrified, but it's also about making people laugh. That's what made Sam Raimi's Evil Dead and his sequels so enjoyable. This is just completely indistinguishable from the rest of the really splattery, gory nonsense that came out in the midst of Saw and Hostel. Very well executed splatter, but it's just splatter nonetheless. Splatter with none of the fun. And that's really what I thought. And I was waiting for it to end. It could have ended for me a lot sooner than it did.
Yeah. There was only one real laugh for me, and that was the slow-mo shot to the stair lift going up with Granny. That was fun. Actually did deliver a guffaw from me. Yeah. But that was about the only joke in it, so I agree with you. Emma, did you see this one?
I just don't want to spoil it for slightly later in the podcast, because I may have picked this as my worst for the month. More gore the better is usually, I don't mind a bit of gore at the cinema, but I just found so much of it just gratuitous, and I'm normally that psycho that sits there just laughing every time someone gets bashed in the head with something. And there were a couple of those moments, but after a while I was just like, did we have to hit that person for the 18th time in a row? I also got really distracted by the T2 references that just kept popping up. And
T2? Terminator 2?
Yeah, I looked into it, and it's like there's not a particular reason other than seemingly they just really liked Terminator 2 and wanted to do some similar things. Well, I'll be honest, I didn't look for too long because the film had annoyed me already. But yeah, when I kept noticing them, I was like, oh, I really like TT.
Watch that instead.
Yeah. The last one, there was that really, like, my skin still crawls at the cheese grater moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw what was clearly supposed to be that version in this one, which is in the trailer, which is all the cutlery coming up from the dishwasher thing, I was just like, no, that's not. That's not going to cause me the same wincing pain that the cheese grater did.
Yeah.
That death by the dishwasher, that seemed more in the Final Destination wheelhouse than
Yes.
it did in the Evil Dead wheelhouse.
I thought that, and it's one of those films I wish I hadn't seen the trailer of, because I thought all the best bits were in the trailer, and you know what's coming. And they do this again and again with horror films with trailers. When you've seen the trailer, you're sitting watching, you think, I know what's going to happen now. Because I've seen it. I know somebody's going to jump out the dark. I know somebody's going to, come in from left field. I know whatever, the car's going to go over the cliff or whatever. And I just was really quite disappointed from that point of view that I'd seen the trailer. I thought it was okay.
Yeah. It was overkill. That's the way I think I can describe it. Evil Dead overkill. Yeah, that's what I call it. Evil Dead overkill.
I must admit, I'm not a devotee of this. In fact, I've struggled to think if I've actually seen any of the Evil Dead films before. Shock horror. I was just generally confused by the beginning, the whole stuff in the lake at the beginning. I didn't know whether that was a carryover from the last film in the series. It was. Right. Okay. So I was joining this thing from zero position, and I found the whole opening of the film very confusing, just cutting from this to that to the relationship and the fighting at the bar and all of that stuff. It was all kind of thrown in the mix, so I thought it was a very haphazard beginning of the film. But I like you guys, and I'm glad you clarified that this is a film you just wanted to talk about, Dan, rather than it being your favourite, because I must admit, spoilers, that maybe in a good month this one has ended up at the bottom of my list as well. I just thought, like you say, I thought some of the violence was just gratuitous. That pen, that slow motion pen, reminded me of that scene in Saving Private Ryan with the knife and the two soldiers wrestling over the knife. But in that, it was truly dramatic and truly horrifying and part of the story. In this, the pen thing, that's no way to treat a Montblanc pen.
That's a proper callback to the first Evil Dead, which involves a pencil and someone's Achilles heel.
Okay.
Which is one of the main reasons why the film was put on the Video Nasties list to begin with. There's a lot of callbacks to the film, and if you're familiar with the other films in the Evil Dead series, particularly 1 and 2, then you will see a lot of visual callbacks.
It might make more sense, yeah. And there was let's call it a face dunking scene, which was so ludicrously unpleasant.
A lot of spit in this film, lot of gobbing on people, and lots of dribbling, and pretty unpleasant.
We didn't get quite the amount of poo as in Jackass movie, but I must admit I had more fun in the Jackass movie than I did in this film. I also wasn't clear at all how these deadites actually infected, if that's even the right word, people.
Possessed.
Yeah,
they're possessed.
But how? What is the process? Is it sharing bodily fluids? Is it touching them? Do they have to die first? I was completely confused.
No, they just enter the body. They don't have to come in contact. Yeah, they just possess people. It's like a spirit, like a demonic spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well,
sorry, I could talk about Evil Dead all day. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for the education, but yeah. Okay. So that is the Evil Dead Burn. We ought to go back to scoring films, shouldn't we? We used to score all these films. Maybe we'll do that at the end of the podcast and stick some scores down for these out of 10. We're going to move on now to Emma. This is once again very different change in direction. What is your film of the month?
Well, it's a nice, breath of banana scented fresh air. The little yellow. I'm not going to repeat what you said, Bob. But
Comedy gods, I think it was, wasn't it? He called them comedy gods.
Little yellow shits, I think you'll find I said.
yeah. The delightful little minions. Stop it, Bob. Stop it. We're in 1920s Hollywood, and they're having a creative moment. And as the title suggests, it's minions and monsters. Lights, camera, action. Here's a clip.
In this clip, we've got the film director Max, voiced by Christoph Waltz, directing a fight between the minions and a gang of marauding Vikings, with the minions taking the make-believe into all too real violence against the poor extras. I've been there. Here's a clip.
Oh. You see those large, heavily armed men? They suspect you have killed their leader, and they want you dead.
Quick?
Okay, action!
Buddy?
We're just actors!
Buddy?
That was perfect!
Bob, I don't understand what is not
No,
to
nor do
like
I.
about a Minions movie.
Nor do I. Emma, I'm with you all the way.
Honestly, you don't go into a Minions movie expecting cinematic, award-winning anything at all, really. But this just brings you joy if you're not a miserable old man. Sorry, Bob. Everyone in the screen was having a great time. The kids were laughing just because, fart sounds, crazy minions. The adults were laughing, and just all the cinematic references. I did try and note some of them down after coming out, but I think there's between 30, 40 different sort of little homages to various cinematic wonders from back in the day. It was just such fun. And that clip, which is just a lot of screaming if you're on the audio version, was just so funny. And I thought it was a really good way to kick off the actual creative side of it. And honestly, I loved the little bromance that was going through it. And I also loved the fact that they managed to skip over the minions really helping some very evil people from actual history.
Although some would say there are some very evil film producers and directors in Hollywood, yeah. So
True, very true. Honestly, it's just entertaining, and the disappointment on your face, Bob, is just so upsetting.
No. Look, I gave it a 6 out of 10, which makes it perfectly watchable for me, and I did laugh a lot. In this film, particularly the first half. There's just something about the minions that they just tend to annoy me a little bit in volume. And in a Despicable Me movie, you've got some dilution with Gru and a different element to the story. And the minions are just sidekicks who come into it and add a bit of comical humor. It's just having the whole film as minions. And when we got to the overblown finale of the film, I just really had enough of it. I enjoyed the first reel, absolutely. All the film references, all the early film references, the Galloping Horse, the Lumiere brothers references, the Mummy Returns, all of that stuff. And I loved it. And the blob that came in was, we went into kind of 50s sci-fi stuff. It was just all a little bit too much for me to give it more than a 6 out of 10. But hey, yeah. Andy, I know you loved it as well.
With the Minions movie and with this one, I laughed from the opening studio logo to the end credits. Generally, I was just smiling, and I just thought, I am having a really good time, and that's what I want, and that's what I needed. And I thought particularly, not being a Star Wars fan, I particularly liked the joke at George Lucas's expense, which I was very early on, but I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
And that was actually George Lucas's voice as well.
Yeah, I thought the joke involving the mummy and a toilet had me rolling in the aisles. And this was one film where I'd seen some of those jokes in the trailer, but I actually didn't mind seeing them again because I was laughing again, rather than with a horror trailer where you've seen it and you know what's coming. You go, oh yeah, bring it on, kind of thing. Yeah, right. With this, it's such great comedy that you just laugh at it again and again and again. And it's so visual, and I'm sure I missed a lot of the gags. that are running around in the background. So I can't wait to get my hands on a Blu-ray copy actually of this and watch it almost with freeze frame going through it, because Charlie Chaplin's in there, Buster Keaton's in there, all the great comics from the 20s. I love the gag about when talkies come in and they have to stop making talkies because nobody can understand what Minions said.
You see, I like that. I would love to see a remake of Singing in the Rain with Minions. Right? If they'd followed that line, if they'd remade Singing in the Rain, done some of the classic songs, introduced it with Minions, I would have been dead happy.
If Illumination are listening, Bob won't take any money for that idea. You can have it. You can make it. No.
It could be a whole series, Singing in the Rain. We could do La La Land with Minions. Right? Please, Andy.
I would mind that, yeah.
Yeah, that'd
I
work.
want Whiplash with Minions. That's
Whiplash. Saving Private Ryan with Minions. Yes. Come on, Hollywood.
Do the works. Let's just remake everything with Minions.
Let's just remake it.
Carry on, Minions.
Evil Dead Burn.
Evil Dead Minions.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay.
How many ways could you kill people with a banana?
Evil Dead Burn.
Well. Nice.
Very good. Very good. Yes. Kaboom tish. Right. I said that we were going to have Scott Forbes join us, and Scott Forbes is going to join us because he's going to introduce his film of the month. You notice we still haven't got to a big film of the month yet that is out in cinemas, but or indeed that one, or indeed Animal Farm. We will come back to that one, yes. But here is Scott explaining, first of all, why he's not here with us. Here he is. And joining us remotely for this episode is Scott Forbes, who is very soon to be Scott Forbes Tavera, because this is actually Scott's wedding day. Scott, many congratulations. I told my wife that you were about to jump on a podcast on your wedding day, and she said, "What the fuck is he doing that for?"
It's an late afternoon wedding, Bob, so I've got a few hours to kill this morning. So, as you said in the WhatsApp group, what else would I be doing? Priorities, eh?
It's either this or going to watch the Odyssey again, I guess. So, yeah.
I just have time. Just about.
Well, many congratulations from myself and the Mrs. Movie Man, and many congratulations from all of us on Flickering Dreams. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for jumping on and talking about one of your favourite films from this month. Would you like to introduce a clip?
Sure. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, I have not seen many films this month. My cinema going has been very limited, but there is a film that I saw on Netflix that I really enjoyed, and that is a French film called Nothing to Lose. Here's a clip.
I'm calling to have my son put on the urgent waiting list. How long will it take?
Between 3 and 6 weeks.
My son doesn't have time. I know you're distressed.
Come with us to the station, please.
Can't right now. My son is sick and he needs me.
Priority is the most critical patients.
You mean he's not sick enough for you?
I mean, you're arguing with the doctors, even with me. You're gonna everything up.
We'll fight together.
So this is, as I said, a French film that is available through Netflix. It is a drama/social justice type of film. Essentially what we find is that we have a couple who, at the beginning of the film, they're struggling to conceive, and eventually there is a child that is born. However, when the child gets to around about 10 years old, he is unfortunately struck with a diagnosis of leukemia. Now, from there, what we essentially have is a mother trying to do everything she can, follow all the rules, go to all the treatments, but things aren't quite going how she wants it to, and so she decides to take matters into her own hands at this point and perhaps go against the system. So, I don't know, Bob, have you seen the Denzel Washington film John Q?
No, I can't say I have.
No, I think it was maybe early 2000s. This film reminded me a lot of that. And I don't want to compare too much for sort of spoiler reasons, but it had the same DNA where we've got this parent that's really fighting for the rights of their child, fighting for survival, just doing everything that a parent would do for their child that might be against their own interests, put it that way. I thought this was a really, I don't want to say necessarily emotional film. I don't think it quite has the depth to bring tears, but I think it was quite powerful in points. Obviously, the subject matter is difficult, and everyone will have their line with that. But it's an enjoyable, almost thriller type movie, particularly in the second half when things start to heat up a bit. There is a little bit of levity and a little bit of light comedy with the children as well that are involved in this film. It's not been getting great reviews when I've looked at it online, perhaps because it is similar to things that have been before. Not quite John Q, but more, I was going to say Hallmark. It's not Hallmark, but the sort of low budget type of films that's in that genre. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the performances were really impressive. The mum here, whose name is Jada, actress's name is Nawal Madini. I thought she was terrific. Never heard of her before, but she brings so much intensity and emotion to that character that I couldn't help but just feel for her the whole time and get behind some of her questionable actions, let's say. But no, for me, this is an 8 out of 10 and a joint score that I've got with another bigger film that I'm sure one of you guys will be talking about at great length.
Okay, remind us of the title again on Netflix.
The title of this, the English title is Nothing to Lose.
Nothing to Lose, and it's what, Spanish with
French
subtitles?
French, but it's got all the options for audio, subtitles, whatever you want.
Okay, chance to brush up on your French as well then. That's good. All right, thank you very much, Scott, for that. So that was Scott madly recording that thing on the morning of his wedding. I mean, honestly. And the film he was talking about was Nothing to Lose on Netflix. Is that one that anybody else has watched?
No.
Nope. Not for me, but it's one to maybe dig into when you get the chance. We're on to our final best of films of tonight, and you notice a really massive film out this month has migrated to the very end of this list. Not, I think, because anyone thought it was terribly bad. Just some of us had options that nipped in ahead of it, as it were. But that could make for quite an interesting discussion here. Andy, you had a joint first for the month with Minions and Monsters, but can you please introduce us to The Odyssey, as if anybody needed to?
You don't need an introduction to Christopher Nolan's new film, The Odyssey. Here's a clip.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
You're pining for a daddy you didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard.
Who's looking after your wife and son?
Do you see?
My dad is coming home.
Bringing vengeance. Bringing it all.
So I'm a sucker for big action blockbuster movies. I'm also a sucker for Greek mythology and anything that's got a bit of fantasy thrown into it. And I think what Christopher Nolan has done is he's taken a very long book, and I've been listening to it on Audible with Saree McKellen reading it, and he's taken the best bits, and it's almost like an edited highlights of the book, and possibly would have made a great TV series with a number of cliffhangers as you go through the story. But the story of Odysseus returning home is beautifully told. What I like about Nolan films is you feel you're right there. Shot in IMAX, I saw it in IMAX. You feel as if you are right there in the thick of what's going on. He's a way of filming these things that draw you in. So when we're in the cave with the Cyclops, I felt I was in that cave. I could feel the wind blowing. And we're on the ship and watching the dolphins, which apparently was a purely coincidental shot that they managed to get. Dolphins just came by while they were filming. I felt I was on the boat. I was sort of ducking because I thought I was going to be splashed any minute with the water. I felt that the performances were all great. I felt the story was really well told. What I appreciated as well was you watch something like, which I did recently, Jason and the Argonauts, where you see the Greek gods up in heaven and manipulating humans sort of on a big chessboard type thing. You don't get that in this film. The gods are walking among us, and Zeus's law, where you make everybody welcome and so on and so forth. I just thought was brilliantly portrayed. It steered away from that old cliche of having the gods up in heaven manipulating human characters, which I really thought was really good. Instead, the gods are among us. I also thought that the score was incredible. I've just ordered the score. It's one of the few film soundtracks that's actually coming out on CD, and my CD apparently arrives tomorrow. And they used instruments of the time rather than the sort of modern synthetic orchestral score, which again is something new with these big, spectacular, epic films of yore. You get a big orchestra, and the Royal Philharmonic or whatever it happened to be playing the score. I felt it had a realism about it, even though it's a fantasy. And the other thing that I really did appreciate was the fact this is a grand story. This is an epic war, battle, monsters, myths, Greek god story, but there are moments of real intimacy, even though it's shot on IMAX. There are moments where we close in on people, where there's a lot of dialogue, and we feel empathy with people. There are moments when you get a chance to really breathe and just go, yeah, I needed that before the next big blockbuster moment. So I appreciated everything about this film. And I know, Bob, you have complained in your review. Again, we're not going to Bob tonight, are we? Bob complained about some of the locations not feeling particularly Greek or summery. Those that are locations that are described in the book. And Nolan gets them absolutely accurate and true to the book. So
yeah, I don't think the book ever went to Scotland.
It did go to Scotland, but it went to a dark, misty, moory place where a mist and like Mordor, a Mordor type environment, where the Army of the Dead is. The book did do that, Bob.
The Army of the Dead, the Iceland bit, that was fine. Okay. I didn't mind the Iceland bit. But when we're leaving Greece and we ended up in obviously Scotland on a Scottish hillside with lions and tigers and bears.
Oh my.
It took me out of the film. Took me out of the film. Anyway,
I didn't even think about that when I was watching it. To be honest, I was just enjoying the story because I got so caught up and wrapped up in it.
It's just some things take me out of the film, and as they filmed on Greek beaches for a lot of locations, I don't know why they didn't just pick a lot of other Mediterranean things. They could have mixed it up with Syria and Tunisia and all sorts of different locations.
It's a hill to die on, I think.
yeah, okay. It's a minor thing.
The depiction of the Trojan horse was fantastic as well.
Oh, I agree.
It's always been filmed as a big wooden horse on wheels, or as we know, a giant rabbit on wheels, out of which we will now jump. Whoops! But I thought that depiction, and again, you felt as if you were in that horse with those guys. This is IMAX, but there was such big close up on how intense that was to be inside that horse, how squashed up they were. And to get that across on the big IMAX screen, that sense of closeness and claustrophobia, I thought was really well done. I mean, it just proves what a great director Nolan is.
I know you saw this in IMAX, which I can see as being different. But do you not think that this was IMAX for IMAX's sake in some senses? Because I did not see it on IMAX. And frankly, sometimes I wanted to see the top of Matt Damon's head. Or because when you've got a letterbox format on an IMAX screen, it just looks wrong. And IMAX, I know there are, I think it's 1,700 IMAX cinemas around the world that could show this film. There's only 3 cinemas in the UK, IMAX cinemas, that can show it in 70 millimeters, as Nolan intended. But most people will be seeing it in 16:9 letterbox format on standard screens. And I think it's a bit of a wank fest that Nolan's on to say, I'm going to film this in IMAX and only IMAX. And it'd be great if you can see it in IMAX. And I do hope to actually get to see it in IMAX at some point.
If you listen to this week's Como de Mayo podcast, and obviously ours is much better and superior, they had an email from somebody who'd seen it in IMAX, but also seen it on a standard screen. And the email was saying it didn't lose anything.
Well, that's probably because they've seen it in IMAX first, I'm guessing.
Possibly.
Well,
but they were saying it doesn't matter. Go on, Dan.
Sorry, I only saw it in standard screening, and I felt like I lost nothing of the scale or the epicness of Nolan's vision. Right. I thought this was a wonderful film. I thought this was an absolute like era defining movie. I think this is this decade's Lord of the Rings in terms of just pure ambition and scale and drama. Classicist, because I love the Odyssey. We're going to be talking about Animal Farm in a bit. To talk about two of my favorite books in one episode, this is great. The Odyssey has always been a very difficult film, a story to adapt to film, and the best version of this until Nolan was a 1997 miniseries that was made for HBO, which was two episode series with Isabella Rossellini. At one point I think she was Athena, and it's a very good adaptation that really focuses on the mythical and the monstrous side of the Odyssey. What you were alluding to, Andy, and I think it's brilliantly put, is that what Nolan has done, he's taken a very godlike story, a story of gods and goddesses and cyclopses, Lystragonians and Scylla's, Charybdises, and he's made it a very personal story about this one man. And that's even exemplified in the character of Athena, played by Zendaya, who is not the Athena who you would normally associate. She's actually a much more tragic interpretation of that character.
Yeah, there's that revelation, isn't there, when we see her in Troy, and then when we see her.
No spoilers.
No. Yes, that gave me shivers.
Yeah, that really made me go, wow.
The two people I really want to highlight in the cast, because I think the cast are all great. One is John Leguizamo, who I've never been a fan of.
Yeah.
I've never really liked John Leguizamo. I thought he was terrific as Emmaus. And I'm going to call it now. Samantha Morton is not only going to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress, she is going to win Best Supporting Actress for her absolutely amazing portrayal of Cersei, the witch, who manages to be far more terrifying than the Cyclops or Scylla and Charybdis or any of the other monsters that they fight.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant performance.
It's so good. Yeah. As I say, classicists are going to have problems because Nolan has omitted a lot of the more fantastical elements of the story, like the Aeolian winds. And I personally would have loved to have seen more of Scylla and Charybdis, because that's my favourite part in the story. The original rock and a hard place that they have to travel in between to get to where they need to go. I would have loved to have seen more of that. But just as a pure visual sensory experience, I think this is just up there with some of the greats ever made. This is up there with, you mentioned Jason and the Argonauts and all the great Ray Harryhausen films of the 60s, 70s. I think this is far better than Troy, which I don't understand why there's such a discourse on the internet of people trying to compare Troy and the Odyssey, because they're completely different films in terms of tone and in terms of intention. This for me is Nolan's best film since Interstellar. I can't wait to see it again. Yes, it has its differences, and yes, it's not a fully accurate interpretation of the Odyssey brought to screen, but I don't even know if that could be really done, because the power of the Odyssey lies in its words and the writings of Homer. What this is a brilliant interpretation of a classic story that has served as the bedrock for Western narratives for however many thousand years it's been around.
You certainly watch it and you think of Tolkien and you think of... Yeah. I even got some Bunyan out of it, if I'm honest. And Bunyan was evangelical Christian. And I just think the story, as I said, I think it could make a great mini-series.
Yes, there was more to be told, I think. It felt quite episodic and rushed in places.
It was episodic, but that's the nature, that's the story.
Yeah, that's the story as well. Each chapter is literally labelled as the Cyclops. Yeah. Cersei, Scylla and Charybdis. I would highly recommend, though, Andy, if you do want to see the miniseries, the 1997 series that I'm talking about.
It.
Oh, you have seen it?
Time ago.
I was going to say it is on YouTube. Yeah. I actually own it on VHS because, I'm cool like that. Yeah. But it is really worth a watch if you do love the story of the Odyssey, but also love the monsters and, the creepy things that Homer created.
Yeah. Well, I watched the Odyssey, and then a couple of days later I watched Jason and the Argonauts.
I did too.
And Jason and the Argonauts is so much fun. Yeah. But it's a very different interpretation of the Greek god myth. In that, as I said, the gods are very clearly seen to be manipulating people on a giant chessboard, basically, moving people around, whereas the gods are walking among us. I think it was a great decision by Nolan to do it that way. Emma, you've been very quiet. Have you seen it?
I did, yes. I managed to get around to it in the end. A lot of what I thought about it matches what you said. I thought Samantha Morton was absolutely incredible. I'd forgotten everything I know. Like this, in my youth, it was all about this sort of tale and things, and I just forgot everything. So when everything kicks off with her, just thought it was incredible how they managed to do it. I was also really very impressed that they managed to hide a lot of nudity in some of those transition
Yeah,
scenes in that.
and it is a 15 certificate.
I
Yeah.
mean, just like I said, and John Leguizamo, I thought was amazing. Obviously, at the beginning of the pod, Bob, you mentioned about the dog, and I thought that was so nicely done. Although obviously I was crying again because emotionally unstable. My only quibble, and this is something I have an issue with all Nolan films, is I feel like the man hates me. The sound was just insanity.
Needs subtitles. Couldn't understand a word some people were saying at times.
Now, you see, I didn't feel like I had too much of that, although yes, it was challenging.
You mean the volume?
I had the same problem, and I tell the story about when I went to see Tenet when it came out just after lockdown, and I was so annoyed because I really wanted to see New Mutants. We won't discuss that. But I might as well have been sitting in the Tenet screening that was going on next door because that was all I could hear whilst I was watching New Mutants. And a lot of the time, like, we have got an IMAX in Bristol now, but that was sold out. By choice, I would have gone to a normal screening anyway.
Yeah.
Because they set off my motion sickness. I'm just falling apart at the seams. But never mind. But the vibration when the sound got so high was like I was sitting there like heart palpitation. Like I was having trouble focusing. It was so distracting. And I just find that with all of his films. And it's like, I enjoyed it, but I still come out going, oh, I had an awful time. And it is just the audio that causes me that problem.
I felt like that about Mad Max Fury Road. I needed painkillers after watching that movie in the cinema.
I find the trying to distinguish some of the dialogue, fighting against the music and the sound effects at full volume, I just couldn't do it. It's really indecipherable. What do we think about Tom Holland in his role? Do you think he's of age yet?
I didn't have a problem with Tom Holland. I thought he was fine.
I thought he was too old for that role.
If anything, the one person I thought was slightly miscast, and I know it's going to sound strange, but I never saw him as Odysseus, was Matt Damon. I like Matt Damon, and I think he delivers a very good performance. He didn't seem buff enough to be Odysseus. Because as a kid, I remember watching, at school, I was introduced to the Odyssey through a very strange, weird cartoon that they showed in school on VHS. And even in that cartoon, Odysseus was an imposing figure. He was kind of like the Hercules in the Jason and the Argonauts, Andy.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem to have that power that Odysseus would have.
He has been a full-blown commander, attacked Troy, and then been away for 20 years. So I actually quite like Matt Damon in that role. I thought...
Yeah, he hasn't had much time to visit the gym during those 10 years. And he's been fattened up by what's-her-name and,
No, he was grizzled. He could still handle himself at the end there, though, couldn't he?
And, I thought he was great. I mean, Hathaway particularly was very good. One of the best performances I've ever seen again. Actually,
my only real casting problem was Tom Holland because I think he's too old.
If anything, I thought he was too young.
No, he's supposed to be. He's not of age. He's not 18, is he?
I would have liked to see more of Charlize Theron as Calypso, because Calypso is always one of the most interesting characters in the book, and they didn't really do much with Calypso, but
indeed
there'll be a sequel.
Be a sequel.
Apparently, it's made $600 million worldwide to date.
Fantastic.
So.
And then that's only just made its money back, if that. 250 million production cost.
It will be fine. It will be fine.
The marketing. It'll be fine. It'll get to over $1 billion, surely. Still not as good a business deal as Obsession.
Obsession,
though,
yeah.
No, but it's done almost twice as much as Oppenheimer, apparently, on the same period.
It's been a smash for sure, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to watching it because the illustrious Mrs. Movie Man hasn't been to see it yet, so I will be taking it to see that. I'm not sure it's going to be a great rewatcher for me, though. Not like Inception and Interstellar.
Oh, I can't wait.
I will reach for the Blu-ray and stick it on because I'm just not sure it'll be that type of film for me. But hey, horses for courses.
Trojan horses for courses.
Trojan horses for courses, yes. So I realised after recording this month's show that I hadn't actually included Scott's comments about the Odyssey. So here, as a quick insert, is what Scott had to say about the Odyssey and any additional points that he raised.
This is an excellent film. Christopher Nolan makes big movies. You get everyone on board. You've got Ludwig Göransson doing the score, Hoytman Hoytma with cinematography. He's getting the gang of Oscar winners all together to do his thing. We know Nolan likes playing with time. He does that again here. And I liked the way that mixed together better than some of his more recent films when he's played about with it. What can I say? The music's amazing. It looks stunning. I thought Matt Damon was very impressive in the lead. And perhaps my MVP was actually Anne Hathaway, who I would definitely not be surprised if she got a supporting actress Oscar come Oscar time, or at least a nomination. John Leguizamo as well, which I'm seeing a lot of the professional sort of reviewers talk about this film, mentioning all the big A-listers. He's under a lot of makeup, and he really impressed me. And it wasn't until later in the film when I was looking at certain angles, and I'm like, I think that's John Leguizamo. So yeah, very impressed with him. He deserves credit as well for the list. I think the monsters were really impressive. The one thing that I was a little down on, but not as much as some people, is the Tom Holland thing. I get it that we perceive that he looks young, but at this point, he's starting to not look like a teenager anymore. So I can see where some people can go against that, but it didn't take me out of the film too much. So I went along with it. Sailing with the water scenes, hearing about Christopher Nolan on one of the podcasts I listened to, going out to see people complaining, oh no, it's bad weather today, we can't go out filming, or maybe you don't want to film today. And then he fights back saying like, no, that's exactly what we want. We want stormy weather. We want to go out on the boats when it's water going everywhere, people going side to side. That fit Nolan's criteria for what he needed for the film. So very well made film. It will no doubt, if not sweep the Oscars, at least be probably the leading contender. I'm sure Dune 3 will have something to say about that, but it wouldn't surprise me right now if it had the most nominations going into the Oscars this year.
So that's our rundown of the best of the month. We're going to do quickly, because we're running out of time here, our worst of the month films. I think, Emma, you alluded to yours a little bit earlier as maybe being Evil Dead Burn. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, well, I said it all already. It was just a bit too gratuitous and...
yeah. Meh. I also had that. I mean, it's been a good month for films. 5 out of 10 is my lowest rating for the month, which is pretty damn good. But I was also Evil Dead Burn that I rolled on. Dan and Andy, I think you have a different film.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Well, shall I go? I mean, Dan's already given the game away, but my worst of the month was definitely Andy Serkis's new version of Animal Farm. I've got to be honest, I thought it was a car crash of a movie. I gave it 1 out of 10. I thought it totally took Orwell's brilliant, ultimately very scary book and updated it, not as a story against communism and the evils of a supreme ruler dictating everybody's every move, but a story about capitalism. It became a story about Trump and capitalism, and I was really, really disappointed. Why not just tell the story that Orwell told? The last line of Animal Farm, the novel, is one of the greatest, most scary lines ever to end a novel. If you've never read it, that ending, I remember reading it at school for the first time and wanting the book to carry on, but it just ends. It just ends. This film, in common with previous adaptations, including the British one that was made in the 50s, changes the ending. I wasn't happy. I thought it was a car crash of a movie.
Dan?
Yeah, this is my favourite book of all time. I read this at least once a year. I can read it in about 45 minutes. It's such a breezy read. But it might be slight, but there's so much to it. Yeah. And I personally don't have a problem with adapting Orwell in various ways. You know, I love Terry Gilliam's Brazil, which is a riff on 19... God, why can't I remember its name?
1984.
1984, thank you. I'm so sorry, I couldn't remember then. Yes, 1984. So I went into this having seen the trailer, knowing that it was going to be bad. So I went into it just thinking, okay, let's just see what Serkis can do with this source material. And there are times when it almost threatens to work. However, the anti-communist messages and the anti-totalitarian messages so ripe in the book are pretty much diluted underneath a sea of really bad puns, pretty awful animation, which at times reminded me of Monster House in the human design. I love Monster House, but that film was from 2006. You know, you'd think CGI would have improved by then, but it looks really bad. Fart gags.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
There isn't a fart gag in the book.
Have you not read the book?
Well, you know, there might be one. Yeah, there might be one or two, but not to that extent.
No, it's the appendices of the book.
It's in the appendices, like the Silmarillion,
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted this to be good because the story of Animal Farm is so timeless, like the rest of Orwell's writing. And, you know, there's a good reason why it's taught in schools. And there's a good reason why the story is still so memorable today, because its themes are so universal and its themes are always going to be relevant. What Andy Serkis has done is made a very irrelevant film that is just there. It almost looks at some points, and I hate to say it almost looks like it's been AI generated at some points, because it seems to flounder about its themes that contradict each other, sometimes in the same sentence. The voice cast is good. I quite liked Woody Harrelson as Boxer, the horse, although his sticky ending is one of the most mishandled thing that I've seen in any animated film of recent years, because that's the most devastating moment in the book, and here it's played for a laugh, pretty much, you know. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Animal Farm, the book, has very few laughs in it. It might be a story intended for universal audiences, but it's not a book that is childish. It treats its audience with maturity. I think that's why I appreciated it so much as a kid and why I appreciate it now. And there were two adaptations of it. There was a 1954 animated film by Hallison Batchelor, which was funded by the CIA, which is actually one of my favorite films. And then there was a Jim Henson, which is not highly regarded, 1999 TV film with a voice cast of Patrick Stewart and Kelsey Grammer, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. This is easily the worst of those. And both of those films do have problems that I mentioned before, but at least it sticks to the core themes of the book. You know, it sticks to what Orwell wrote. I read a review for this film which said this is like if Napoleon himself managed to write a version of Animal Farm. And that's pretty much what this is. It's a bastardized version of Orwell that may have the look of Animal Farm. You know, you've got 4 legs good, 2 legs bad written on a barn door, or on a silo in this case. But it has none of the heart or the messages that made it so powerful.
And this new film, Dad, as you go, but I'm not sure who's going to enjoy it. I think kids will be totally confused by it, and I think adults like you and me will be disappointed by it. So I'm not quite sure who it's aimed at.
I don't just think that they'll be confused, but I think they'll be bored by it. It's a really dull movie.
Because there's action in the book.
Yeah.
There's the Battle of the Windmill. There's another battle later on, yeah.
The expulsion of Snowball and things like... Oh, the expulsion of Snowball. Oh, so bad in this film.
Car crash. Yeah.
It doesn't put me in good stead for Hunt for Gollum, because as much as I like Andy Serkis as an actor, he hasn't impressed me as a director. This is easily going to be one of the worst films of the year, if not the worst, just in terms of its intentions. You know, I was reminded of a line from Jurassic Park 3 when a character says, you know, I know it was wrong, but I did this with the best intentions. And Sam Neill turns around and said, some of the worst things ever done were made with the best intentions, you know. And I think that's the case with Andy Serkis' Animal Farm.
Glowing tributes then. Glowing tributes.
Read the book.
Animal Farm.
Read the book. That's what you need
instead.
to do.
Yes, I feel like I have to hunt this film out to give it my own opinion, but there you go.
Have you read the book, Bob?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I have. Yeah. Many years ago.
It's well worth a reread.
Unlike Dan, I have not read it again, but yes, I will dig it out.
I highly recommend it. It's amazing how prophetic both Animal Farm and 1984 are.
Yes, indeed. Okay, guys, let's just run through some scores for our films that we've seen this month. First of all, The Last Viking. I think only Andy and myself have won that. I gave that a 9. What would you give it out of 10,
9.
Andy? 9 as well. We've also talked about Evil Dead Burn. Dan, what would you give that?
5 out of 10.
5, and I'm a 5 as well. And Emma?
4.
4. Okay, out of 10. Minions and Monsters, Andy?
9.
9 out of 10. Emma?
Yep.
9 out of 10. I gave it a 6 out of 10. And The Odyssey, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Andy?
9.
9. Dan?
8 out of 10.
Oh, 8 out of 10. Okay. And Emma?
It's an 8 from me as well.
It's an 8. Okay. So our winner this week, I will do the scores and stick them on the screen. Our film of the month with only 2 votes is actually going to be The Last Viking with an average of 9 out of 10. Very, very closely followed by...
Minions.
No, you see, I dragged the Minions down, you see.
Boo to you.
Boo his. Right. But very, very closely followed by...
Would it have been interesting to have included Spider-Man in this?
It would. Spider-Man came out yesterday.
Well, I saw it today. Yeah.
I saw it today as well. Very good it is as well. But we will push Spider-Man into next month's thing. We just have to remember that we're pushing it into next month.
Yeah.
As indeed we did with Supergirl, which was never going to challenge.
I'll remind you, Bob, because I thought Spider-Man was terrific.
I thought it was a very, very good film. So get out and see Spider-Man.
Is it my first pick next time?
It is your first pick next time. And there is a new shark movie out on Amazon as well.
Yes, there's a new shark movie.
There's a new shark movie out on Amazon. So there you go. It's like the stars have aligned.
Very technically, Minions was a shark movie.
Oh, yes, there was a little reference to
this is interesting because I think me and Emma need to fight for shark supremacy here. Because I have a whole shed full of shark things. You know, I am mad about sharks.
Right.
So I think we need to do a shark showdown.
A shark special. Maybe we'll do a shark special.
I like
that. Right, guys. Thank you very much for joining. My thanks to Andy, to Dan, to Emma, and to Scott, who's currently on his honeymoon, having probably even more fun. And we will see you again, if not before, the end of next month. So thanks very much for joining Flickering Dreams. Don't forget to write to us with your views about any of the films we've talked about, or indeed any of the films we haven't talked about. We'd love to hear from you. That's letters@flickeringdreams.com. And we will see you again next month. Bye.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to Flickering Dreams. Don't forget you can watch the video version on either YouTube or Spotify and listen to the audio version on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe to receive future episodes direct to your inbox. And please write to us with your views on movies that we've talked about at letters@flickeringdreams.com. We'd love to hear from you.